There was a Frenchman back in 1974 by the name of Philippe Petit who decided that he wanted to do an amazing high wire act from one of the towers of the World Trade Center to the other. And he actually accomplished this feat on August 6th of 1974. It took 6 years of him planning for this whole thing to take place, and it took place on that day. And early in the morning, as people were getting ready and heading to work in the morning, they looked up between the two towers that were still being constructed, and up on the 104th floor, they saw a cable extended from one tower to the other. And out stepped Philippe Petit. And there he was, walking across this cable with people looking on, wondering what was taking place. And he continued to put on this show, to show them his amazing ability of being able to walk across this high wire. He was walking across, he even flipped his balancing pole over his shoulder like a pitchfork and walked across. He laid down on the wire and sat down on it. And he was doing some amazing things. And then finally he decided his show was done, and he gave himself up to the authorities who were waiting there to arrest him. And afterwards, they interviewed him and they asked him, they said, "What was the crucial moment for you during this time?" And he said, "It's when you have one foot on the wire and the other one still on the building. And you have to take that foot off of the building and put it on the wire." He said, "It's at that moment that you're out there. You're in another world." Well, I tell you, God has plans for each and every one of us. And it depends upon our step of faith that we're willing to take. There's oftentimes we find ourselves with one foot on the wire, but we still have one foot on the building. And God's saying, it's time to take that other foot off the building. And we see examples of this time and time again in Scripture when people had to take that step of faith and put both feet out there on the wire. When God called Moses to deliver Israel, he said to throw down his staff and it became a snake, and then he said, "Now pick up that snake." And that was a step of faith to grab that snake by the tail, knowing that God was going to turn it back into a staff. And then as the people of Israel had to cross the Red Sea, they had to take a step of faith and walk between two giant walls of water to take that step of faith for their deliverance. And then later they had to cross the Jordan as well. And they had to take a step of faith to cross that to go into the land that God had promised them. Time and time again, we see people taking a step of faith. Peter had to take a step of faith and stand out on the water and walk on the water. And so I ask you today, what is the step of faith that you have to take? What is it that God is calling you? In what way is God saying, come into this new area, and you have to take that other foot off of the building and put it on that wire? What is it that you need to do today?